So as we wrap up the first half of this course and discussion of these founders' dilemmas, my last lecture we talked about wealth versus control, the motivations of the founder. So let's talk about that in a little more detail, understand what the issue is. And we call that dilemma the central dilemma, wealth versus control. There's a wide variety of dilemmas that you face as a founder, whether or not to found, if you decide to found, whether to be a solo founder or put a team together. If you do the team, what are the 3 R's that you give the team? Regardless of the solo or team, what are the 3 R's of hiring people? What investors do I bring in? When do I bring them in? All of these things are all outcomes versus what led to decisions, right? We call this collectively the central dilemma. And the central dilemma is that each founding dilemma is a dilemma of what resources to acquire at what cost, okay? So it's the dilemma behind every other dilemma. And by far, it's the harshest dilemma for a founder to deal with. Why? Because it pits the entrepreneur's 2 most common motivations against one another: wealth versus control, okay? So the entrepreneurial ideal, which I mentioned, I think, in my very first lecture, only a few people have ever accomplished this, what we call entrepreneurial ideal. Bill Gates did, Anita Roddick did. I don't know if you know Anita Roddick, but she was the founder of the Body Shop stores. Unfortunately died of a cerebral hemorrhage at, way too young. So why, and by the way, the entrepreneurial ideal is achieve value creation and maintain control. Wealth and control, you get them both, okay? That's why it's called the ideal. So why have only few founders been able to achieve this? And that's because at each stage of the process, maximizing one goal basically hinders the other one. And you have to choose between one or the other. Am I going to choose wealth in this decision, or am I going to choose control? So there's this inherent tension among the 2 motivational sources. So let's take a look at this, wealth versus control, and how people react, how people make decisions based upon these 2 dilemmas, right? So the co-founders, people who are co-founders, right? In the area of decision, solo versus team, right? If you want to maintain control, you remain a solo founder. That's obvious. If you want to maximize your wealth, you bring in a team. When it comes to relationships, if you want to maintain control, you bring in people you're comfortable with. If you want to maximize your wealth, you bring in people that are best people for the job and may make you uncomfortable. One of my monikers, or one of my sayings I like to say, is never be the smartest person in the room. Always hire people that are better than you, because that's going to make you very successful. When it comes to roles, if you want to maintain control, you're going to control all the decisions that are made in the company. If you want to maximize your wealth, you're going to delegate the decisions to people who can make them better than you can. And when it comes to rewards, if you want to maintain control, you're going to keep all the equity for yourself, because that's the only way you can maintain control, keep the equity. If you want to maximize the wealth, you're going to share the equity with people to attract the best talent, okay? The next piece of this, hiring. Again, same dichotomy, right? But relationships. If you want to maintain control, you hire within your own network. If you want to maximize your wealth, you tap into a broader network to find the best people. For the roles, you give these new hires, you give them, well, if you want to maintain control, you keep all the key decisions to yourself. You have to be the ultimate decider. If you want to maximize your wealth, you delegate decisions to people who can make the appropriate kind of decisions. And when it comes to rewards, if you want to maintain control, you hire less expensive junior employees who aren't going to threaten you. If you want to maximize wealth, you hire experience and incent them with cash and equity. Okay, are you starting to see the picture? It's always the decision between wealth and control. Investors, okay? Decision areas, self-fund or outside capital. If you want to maintain control, you self-fund, you bootstrap, because you don't have to give away any equity if you self-fund it, right? You're not giving it, you're keeping it all for yourself. You want to maximize your wealth, you want to take outside capital, you have to give away some equity. The sources of the equity, if you want to maintain control, your friends and family. Only people who love you, right? They're never going to throw you out of the company. They're never going to take away your control. If you want to maximize wealth, bring in some experienced investors, venture capitalists, that kind of thing. When it comes to the terms of the investment, if you want to maintain control, you're going to have all sorts of pushbacks on these investor-friendly terms in the term sheet. If you want to maximize wealth, you're going to basically accept kind of the market term sheet, for whatever attracts the best investor. And when it comes to the board, if you want to maintain control, you basically are the chairman of the board and also the CEO, and you maintain control of that and you decide who's on it. If you want to maximize your wealth, you get the best directors possible. So, we're seeing the pattern here, right? So when it comes to your successor, right, the trigger of succession is if you want to maintain control, you're going to wait till the last second. Avoid being succeeded until you're forced to be succeeded. If you want to maximize wealth, you want to be open to find the best possible CEO to make the wealth in the company grow. Openness, are you going to be open? Well, if you want to maintain control, you'll probably not be. You're going to resist giving up the CEO's job, but if you want to maximize your wealth, you'll be more open to it. By the way, this is never easy, but the fact is this is the way it works, okay? And then after the succession happens, if you want to maintain control, you'll probably leave the company because you're unhappy. Then become the prince after you've been king. But if you want to maximize wealth, you might want to remain as an executive in the company to help with keeping the domain knowledge and the history and all that kind of stuff, because the idea is it'll help you maximize, the new CEO to maximize the wealth. So, so other factors, okay? Rate of growth, right? If you want to maintain control, you're going to grow slowly to moderately so you can learn, on-the-job training, and you can grow into the job as the CEO and not be kicked out. If you want to maximize your wealth, you want to basically let your growth be fast to explosive, okay? Capital intensity, how much capital do you need to bring in? If you want to maintain control, don't bring in very much. That'll help you slow the company down as well. If you want to maximize the wealth, bring in that money. If you have a chance to raise $20 million as a growth round, go do it, right? And then, the core capital of you as a founder, right? If you want to maintain control, then you will say, I'm well equipped to launch and build my startup without anybody helping me. I can do this on my own if you want to maintain control. If you want to maximize wealth, you're going to go find people that can do the stuff that you cannot do. So do you see now, does it make more sense, right? The most likely outcomes when these decisions are made and you're always having this dichotomy or you're fighting one against the other is, if you want to maintain control, you build less enterprise value. And that is important to remember. If I only teach you one thing in this class, don't forget that. If you want to maintain control when you should not, you build lower enterprise value. If you want to maximize your wealth, build the financial value, but your control will be imperiled. And that's just the way it works, okay? So let me just show you something here. This is the value of the founder's stake in a company after a certain number of, transactions, right, or time, and there's two different groups of companies. One is the older company group, and one is younger company group, okay? So look at the way the graph goes from top to bottom. So at the very highest level, the most valuable founder stake occurs in those CEOs who gave up both the CEO job and the control of the board, okay? The next level was they kept the CEO position only. They didn't stay on the board, okay? Then the third level, which is continuing to go down, they kept the board control only. And then finally, they kept CEO and board control both. And that's the lowest enterprise value for both of these subsets of companies. So I can't emphasize this enough. If you want to maintain control of your company throughout, even though you have outgrown your capabilities in the job, you will build less enterprise value. So what's a solo founder do? What type of decisions do they make? They'll hire younger employees that are less expensive if you're solo. They're twice as likely to use debt to raise money, and they'll raise their first round of money much later in much smaller amount. They want to keep the CEO's role and the chairman role, after the funding, and they're going to get lower pre-money valuations. That's the way it works, okay? So beyond wealth, okay, and control, what other motivations can break the tie, okay? Serial entrepreneurs, how do they evolve, and is the evolution impaired by prior experience, right? You hear this phrase all the time, serial entrepreneurs. People who've done it over and over again, they tend to get better as they go because they learn from their mistakes, okay? So other things to think about is, should I partner or should I not partner? What do you think? If you're a control motivated person, you're going to partner or not? I mean, probably you might put off put off that decision because, you don't want to lose control of anything, not even distribution to your partners, right? And then where should you found the company? Technology hubs help attract the best people. And that's generally, I mean, let's face it, Boston, Silicon Valley. I mean, some people argue that Washington, D.C. is one of those hubs. Although my companies were all kind of here, I don't necessarily agree that we're a big technology hub because we get supported by the federal government in a big way. So the point is that if you want to build wealth, go to the technology hubs where people are good and where they want to be. These young, upcoming, brilliant development people or salespeople, they want to be in Silicon Valley or in Boston or whatever, okay? And then the question is, do I want to do a merger and acquisition transaction or an IPO? I mean, I would say you should really consider IPO to be kind of the last resort. I mean, they're extremely expensive to get done. They're kind of becoming more and more uncommon, although I guess they're starting to come back a little bit, but not like it was, pre-bubble days, for example. And an M&A event is probably, better from the standpoint of, the cost of getting it done, the time of getting it done. And, you might even end up with, a continuing role in the company that acquired you, if you still enjoy being involved in the organization that you started. Okay, so those are other things to think about. So let me give you my big finish, as I call it. This is the end of the section of the course on Founder's Dilemma. So in a nutshell, okay, people are motivated by different things, and different motivations call for different decisions to be made. Founders, find that their decisions can undermine their motivations, right? And as I used to say when I was making a point to people, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, right? You need to understand your motivations, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. So here's the big finish. Knowing when you reach this critical fork in the road at each juncture, and what options are at each fork, and the implications of each of these options, that is the Founder's Dilemma. I hope you enjoyed this part of the course. I'll be looking forward to talking to you about the financing dilemmas in the second half of the course.